This episode of Profiles in Risk is brought to you by InsurTech Connect Las Vegas. The legendary ITC is coming back home to Las Vegas October 14 to 16 at the Mandalay Bay Casino. ITC is the largest InsurTech conference in the world by a long shot and the absolute cannot miss event of the year. We never miss it, neither should you. Register today using our discount code ITCV25SP200 to save $200 off of registration. Again, the code is ITCV25SP200. Register today and see you in Vegas, baby. And when you're there, look for me. I'm the guy with the red top hat, very easy to find, and ask me for some magic. See you in Vegas. Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today I have with me Nadav Interstein, VP of Marketing at Swifter.io. Nadav, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Great. It's been an interesting event recently, and I had an interesting time there.
Okay, well, so we are recording on June 9th. Were you at InsurTech Insights last week in New York City?
Yeah, we had a booth there, and it was an interesting event.
Fantastic. And are you back home in Israel now, or are you in New York still?
Yeah, and rough flights, but yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm still tired, and I only had to fly to Atlanta, Georgia. So I don't know how you guys do it from Israel. But certainly lots and lots of you guys with lots and lots of fantastic insurtechs. So we always give the guest the chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Swifter.io?
So essentially, Swifter used to be a low-code, no-code platform. However, we made a very conscious decision to make a very powerful shift and go down the AI hole in a very aggressive way. So we made a decision to actually create a software development lifecycle tool that uses agentic AI to generate the entire software development lifecycle process, essentially going from a definition of a project. For example, it can be some kind of agent portal, or it can be some kind of a PNC quote and bind process, or any other kind of structured product that you want to generate, taking design guidelines and any other documentation that you want, and the user story naturally. And then it will go hand in hand with your development team, with your product manager, with your analysts and teams to gradually generate the entire sets of definitions for the entire project. Then it will generate wireframe, all the processes inside the system. You will always have the ability to modify and change and touch the data. And it's going step by step, so you will have full control. And then it will generate the actual code. You decide which code, which language you want it. And then you actually get the ability to visually or in the code edits, create in the code edits, and do the testing automated and deploy it. Okay, so A to Z AI-powered code generation that allows you to almost limitlessly create enterprise-level software. Mostly
Holy,
on front end.
okay, holy crap. So I'm taking notes here, like a banshee. Limitlessly create enterprise software. Okay. All right. So this is going to be an interesting one. So I before my insurance life, which has lasted about 15 years, I arrived in the US as a bright-eyed computer science student at Iowa State University. And turns out if you can't do math, you will never graduate with a degree in computer science. So I ended up graduating 4 years later with a degree in management information systems. I never worked on the IT side. I interned once, more in like installing servers and stuff, but I've never programmed professionally, but I know enough to be dangerous. Then 10 years ago, I started the Insurance Nerds blog, and 7 years ago, the Profiles in Risk podcast started by my co-founder Nick Lamparelli, and I took it over like 5 years ago. So
Mhm.
I have now interviewed, well, together we have interviewed almost 700 people. I myself have interviewed like 550 of those,
Mhm.
most of whom are insurtech founders. For the last year and a half, it feels that all we talk about is AI. To the point that I joke that whenever you guys say AI, I'm gonna take a shot of like whiskey or something. Make it a drinking game, right? All right, but I've had a few no code, low code platforms over the years, but nobody has ever made this uh, wide of a statement when it comes to the
Mhm.
software development side of insurance, right? And I've never lived in that software development, but I have seen it kind of as a participant in the system. I've seen
Mhm.
back in the day of the waterfall development, and then the transition to agile was very, very interesting.
Mhm.
Eh, From my perspective, insurance companies have barely finished adapting to agile.
Yeah.
This is a
So
whole
the
radically
system,
different world we're talking about now.
yeah, the system actually operates around the agile process. So essentially, you will create initially in an agile process, you will create some kind of user story and definition of project. And then next step, everything, of course, is connected to your systems. It can be your Jira or whatever. So essentially, you'll create a project definition, and then you start from there. You involve your project manager and your team architect to create the definition for the variables and all that. The system will go hand in hand and create all that for you. It will define the variables, create a YAML file, define all the variables, define the fields, allow you to have insight into all of that. It does task by task and allow you to, in live version, look at the task being done and comment on it. It doesn't mean that it goes and makes the entire thing redundant. Naturally, it needs your input all along the way because you want to create a very, tight system to create a situation where you have full control on what you actually generate. So the system goes hand in hand with the development team, with the product manager and product developer to generate the most accurate, most reliable system at the end. So if I'm looking at how systems and organizations operate right now, there are a few versions of how they usually operate. Either they buy a pre-made system. Okay. The problem with pre-made system is that you need to mainly, in many cases, customize to your organization needs. Okay. And then it's extra costs. Sometimes it has capabilities problems. Sometimes you're stuck with whatever legacy you had before. You need
And,
to be.
and let me pause you there. So one thing I see all the freaking time
Mhm.
is, so we had a homemade system that we've been putting band-aids on for 30 years, and is now a monster, right? A Frankenstein, and
Mhm.
changing a comma to in a display um to satisfy a compliance change will cost us 500 grand to do, right? And this is not
Yeah.
exaggeration. This is like an actual quote from a company that I worked with, a very large carrier, before they transitioned to a modern system. Okay, so
Mhm.
the last 10 years we've seen this massive transition to the guide wires, to the Duck Creeks, etc. Then to the guide cloud, right? And then the insurtech revolution of the last 8, 9, 10 years. um this is exhausting for the business, right? And every time it's like replacing the engine while the plane is in flight, right? Without crashing. And
Mhm.
it is very, very hard to disconnect the old systems because of the renewal cycle, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and basically, what tends to happen with the guide wires, the Dog Creeks of the world, and again, from the perspective of somebody who's never had to manage one of those projects, but I've supplied talent for those projects, uh, and I chat with people about their careers and stuff all around the insurance. what tends to happen is we customize it, we customize it, we customize it, and then again we end up with a more modern Frankenstein, and we
Yeah,
can't even easily upgrade to. And by the way, we need to use an SI. We need to bring a Deloitte or another SI to deploy the project, and uh, we customize it such that the next update comes out, and we can't even easily update because
yeah,
our
because you
constant
have all the
right.
custom code.
So it is. I am so glad that I don't have to manage one of these,
Yeah.
but I do see it how much of a nightmare it is. So with the Swifter model, what what does that
Okay.
look?
So there are a few factors here. First of all, as a concept, we do not intend to replace core systems. Okay. We are doing mostly the front end part. We can have a little bit more depth to the front end elements like rule sets and things like that you can employ on the front end. And it will allow you to have more versatile control on the front end and probably allow you to remove some of the engine capabilities that you probably need to put in your backend system. You can do some of these on the front ends, and then you don't need to customize the backends to create your own rule systems. So the system does support rule sets. It will even support your process to engage these rule sets into your systems. And in terms of future development, the system is capable of creating and modifying branches of the development. So essentially, if you want to develop something after you made the first initial deployment, the system will support the ability to integrate new adaptations and new development on top of the old system, and will allow you and support your testing entire process when you're connecting it back to the main system you've created. Naturally, the system would allow you to create its part of the API element, but you will need to connect the core system using APIs to the front end. The idea is not to replace the legacy systems because we know that this is a major overhaul. Okay, so we don't intend to do that. We intend to create an enabler and not disabler in that aspect.
Perfect. Okay, so it's coming into focus for me. Okay, so basically the idea of Swifter could be, correct me if I'm wrong, but the elevator pitch could be said as a beautiful modern front end UI developed with AI superpowers.
Exactly. Like
Beautiful.
any front end, any business application, it can be internal, it can be external. Imagine that the main idea here is to liberate the ability to generate software for the organization. If you had a backlog before and your IT or dev team had to manage all these legacy tools, all this code, they always had to, barely keep up. With this kind of system, without increasing your team size, you're enabling each and every one of them to get his own capabilities, his own empowerment, essentially liberate software development in the organization. And every time you have a business need that you currently have, you need to make this decision. Well, I have this and this budget, this and this time of the IT. I need to prioritize things. No, you don't need to do that anymore. Just push it down the channel. And if you have Swifter, you can have your team manage much more of that pipeline and essentially create much more tools and software to the organization. And it will essentially liberate software throughout the organization. And that's the concept. The concept is that every time you need something, you have such a capable system that would allow you and enable you to develop code in a much shorter time. And let's be honest, coding is 20 to 25% of the actual development process. You need all the definition, documentation, regulatory aspects. The system supports all the processes and steps and the variations. So you have full visibility towards any regulator. Okay. So even if you have a legacy system that you don't have the entire visibility towards its regulatory aspect, and you need to quickly do some regulatory adjustments. So you can use Swifter for that because it allows you to replicate the system quickly and have all the documentation, all the process, all the things already done. The idea is that the second aspect, for that is that when you're stuck with old infrastructure or old systems, you don't have access to the innovation that happens right now in the market, to real AI. If you are relying on AI when you're generating software, you will progress with the AI systems. You will have this availability when systems would get smarter and smarter and smarter to actually keep up with the rate of progress. Okay, so this is the second aspect, and this is not a small thing. It's actually very crucial
Oh,
to the
absolutely.
business now. I mean, you don't know what would happen. I don't know what would happen in 4 weeks. The rate is insane. Okay, and I try to follow.
The rate of change is insane, and our industry is particularly not used to that fast change, right? There are several reasons that for a long time we had old systems, were heavily regulated. We are somewhat protected from competition because of that regulation, at least here in the US. Um, the world has radically changed, and both carriers and brokers have done a solid job of modernizing over the last 10 years, where they were kind of uh pushed kicking and screaming into modernizing, but they have done it. And I remember when we used to chat with insurtechs 6 7 years ago, and we would ask about implementation, and they would say, we can API, or we can help you build the API if you're not yet API ready. And
Mhm.
we would get off the call, and like once we're not on recording, we would basically be like, so how's it going working with Hiscox US? Because they were the only ones that already were API ready, right? Um,
Yeah.
Now it's radically different. Uh,
Yeah.
right. So what is the implementation like? So if a listener listens to this and they're like, oh my God, my team would really benefit from this. Uh, does it have to be only a brand new project, or can you jump in halfway through an already existing project? And yeah, what's the
So
implementation like?
So essentially, it depends. Okay, right now we are introducing organizations um, in a very predetermined way. So we make a selection on who we introduce to the system at this moment. In 2 months, it's going to be probably completely available to the audience, or a little around that timeline. But the idea is this: you can introduce the system at any point, and it will shorten your time span in a very substantial way. When you start a project, you usually generate the collateral to create this project. So you create the Figma files or designs, you create the user stories and definitions of the project. This is usually a process that takes a while. Okay, so when you're in the middle of the process, you said, well, I already developed that, and I already have the product definition, and I already have the documentation. That's great. You can just introduce it into the system, even if you already started development. Okay, the system works around the concept of predetermined libraries. Okay, it's our libraries, it's open source libraries, it's organizational libraries. It doesn't work in the way that you usually develop in AI, like Cursor, that works line by line. It works a little bit different in kind of a block mentality. Okay, and the idea is that you can introduce your own company libraries into the system. It will learn your development methods, it will learn your libraries, and will employ them in the development of new products. So it will also enable you to do that, in addition to using the open source libraries that are vetted and checked, and systems that we know would operate in any environment and any situation and be robust. So this is a way that we kind of overtook the problems that we have right now with the software development. Naturally, we are constantly developing, constantly creating, constantly improving the product. We have major players in the industry that are working with us on doing that. And which I am sorry that I can't disclose at the moment, but that's the way it is. But um, the idea is that we naturally want to introduce the system as soon as possible and have the people get on board because, as you probably know, it takes a while in the industry to make things roll. And we think that this is the right time for us to engage with the industry, to showcase what we can do, and to kind of get the ball rolling. Um, that's
Fantastic. Very,
that's what I think.
very, very, very exciting. By the way, this episode for the listeners, so we're recording on June 9th. So when Nadav said 2 months, he's probably meaning middle of August or so.
Yes,
This
middle to
episode
end of
will
August.
will go live middle of July. So by the time you listen to this, it's probably a month or less before this is
Yeah.
actually available. Um, all right, all right. How did how did you guys realize that this was a need for the insurance industry?
Okay, so first of all, it was a decision we made after we made a let's say, reality-facing look on our software, okay? Because we made a decision, we said we have a low-code, no-code that was pre-built for insurance. And we said, okay, it's a great system. It works great. We have customers. We are growing. It's amazing. However, essentially, we are dead on arrival. Okay, the system is old when it arrives at customer in terms of how you look at systems. Okay, because you have AI, you have new development. We said we need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to adjust to the new era. And then we made a decision, a very conscious decision, to make the swap because we said it's great to have AI features or to have AI in your journeys. It's amazing, but it's not AI. It's not real AI. That's, let's call it scheming AI, okay? And a lot of companies does that. We made a decision to go very deep, okay? And we honestly believe that this is a, first of all, very exciting development. And the second of all, we think that's the right trajectory to go with. I mean, waiting for the AI to get to some, tipping point or something like that, that's missing the wave, That's like waiting for something big to happen. It's already happened, you know? So industry need to adjust. We needed to adjust. That's when we made the change.
Congratulations on not only having the foresight, but having the guts, the spine to pivot, which
I mean,
is not easy.
it was a very hard but easy decision. We saw the situation. We saw that we have like very solid growth. Okay, we grow more than 100% in 1 year, but we still made this decision because we said this is the reality. Okay, this is the reality. We saw all the competition, we saw the ecosystem, we saw the environment. We said if we don't adapt, either now we're dead on arrival or very, very soon would be dead. So we need to adapt. And that was the real decision here. I think that a lot of organizations in the upcoming 2 to 3 years need to make a major adjustment on how they look at software, how they look at the software development, how they look at adaptation and customization. I believe that in the really near future, you can't come to an organization and ask, do you do auto insurance journeys? Okay, that's not a relevant question anymore. The real question should be, can you adapt to my custom build? Can you adapt to my needs? Okay, so that's the twist. You need to make a change in your perception because AI would open the scope in such a way that the question wouldn't be about specific needs, but about my needs. Okay, so that's why we made the change. The change needs to be a conceptual change in every aspect because right now, when you look at organizations in any industry, essentially, you look and say, right now, I need something that someone built that might fit my needs somewhat. Okay, that's not the right question anymore. Okay, nothing that would fit my need. Maybe I need something that's made to be able to adapt to my needs in real life, in real time. Okay, that's the difference. And this is the way that software and AI will change all industry. If not today, then very, very soon.
The change has been so radical in the last couple of years, right? So from my perspective, running this podcast where I interview tech founders specifically serving the insurance industry almost every day, and all of a sudden we went from talking about a bunch of different things, talking a lot about blockchain, but a wide variety of things, and all of a sudden everything is AI.
Mhm.
And in just a few months, uh, the maturity of those AI solutions and what they're promising, and then the last maybe 10 months talking about agentic AI.
Mhm.
Holy crap. Like I can
Yeah.
only imagine how the people that actually have to execute at a carrier, in the innovation, in the IT, in every leadership side of the carrier, I can only imagine what how crazy their lives have become.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like a race behind, the curve. Uh, I try to keep up with all the innovation in AI, and sometimes it seems so, like Sam Altman is doing a Twitter post or a next post. It's a new development in the software like you've never seen before. It was a goddamn, Twitter post. So you have no way to actually keep up unless you're like really attuned to everything. And it's amazing. I mean, they say that AI would develop to be at the level of an individual with 300 IQ very soon. That's way beyond human
mind
capacity.
blowing. Yes.
Yeah.
So we we're not at AGI, at Artificial General. But holy crap, my
Yeah.
$25 a month ChatGPT subscription is impressively smart. Impressively,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it really is scary how.
So how long have you had this subscription?
Also, my story is actually very interesting, because I signed up with ChatGPT in 23, and I used it a little bit. So I did the whole like, who is Tony Cañas and who is my girlfriend's name, and how does Tony Cañas feel about insurance careers, and right, and I've written a lot. I've written a book. I've written, right, the Insurance Nerds has over 1,000 blog posts.
Mhm.
The podcast has a lot of episodes, so it had a lot to draw from. And and I basically went like, tell me uh what Tony Cañas would advise, career advice in this situation. And holy crap, I'm looking in a mirror, right? It is
Yeah.
so accurate to, and I was like, oh, it's a fun toy. uh and I moved on. I did not use it at all in 2024. Right, it wasn't conscious. I just in 2025 when I logged back in, I saw that there was no log for 2024. Now, my COO, because I'm basically marketing. I'm basically sales, right? My COO, who has to execute on all my craziness, she used it a lot, and she continues to use it a lot. She's really good at it, and her company, our recruiting firm, has gotten better and better and better because of ChatGPT, and other AI products that she uses. Then this year, I jumped back in, for the silliest thing. I jumped back in to draw this. Okay.
Yeah.
And I ended up
Mhm.
making about 200 different versions of it. Um,
Okay.
and I have basically been using AI as a way to augment my magic because I am a professional magician on the side.
Mhm.
And it has been amazing, truly amazing. Like the custom GPT for magicians, and there's several of them, but the best one is mind-blowingly good. Okay. Um, and so within the last couple of months, we're talking literally like my first chat GPT log from 2025 after skipping all 2024 was in was very likely, I can go check, but very likely April 15th of this year, April 12th of this year,
Oh,
because I was going to magic school April 20th, and that's when I started working on this. Okay. Since then, it has become a crucial part of how I run my life. And every day
yeah.
I outsource more stuff to it, right?
So it was impressive in 2023. Right now, it's way beyond that. And if you go and research it a little bit more in depth and look a little bit about what you can do beyond just the basic stuff, like talking to ChatGPT, it's mind-boggling. Okay, it can help you with almost anything. It connects to external tools. It connects to like HubSpot. It connects to your email. It connects to anything. It has video generation. You can have like Sora adapted into it. You can have, it's such a huge, rapid development. Have you tried the research feature, for example?
I haven't yet. My business partner is using the research feature, and we are building it deeply into what we do as a recruiting firm. We are redoing, and when I say we, it's very much her. Right, I participate in calls every Friday with the strategy strategy with the board to talk about the what we're trying to do, but she's the one that's executing. But yes, we are rebuilding and this is a 3-year-old company.
Yeah,
And we are rebuilding our processes from the ground up to be a lot more efficient by maximizing use of AI.
yeah. So this
It
is just beginning, this is just
and
beginning.
and okay, so let's whoever listened this late into the episode is a giant nerd like us. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have the time, humor me a little bit. Let's dig a little bit into the social side of how this might affect the world. Okay. So I have been saying for several years, and I need to go through my really old podcast. I might have said it in my book, but I need to go through my really old podcast and find a like clip of Tony Kanya saying this in like 2016 kind of thing, because I will look like a genius for this. Okay. I said if AI hits an exponential curve the way that personal computing hit it in the 80s and mobile computer hit it in the 2010s, we will find ourselves in a world where education is likely no longer the key to a middle class life. And again, this is a Costa Rican who has lived in the States for 23 years, talking in a very American way, right?
Mhm.
And with the fears of a society that does not have a great safety net, right? This is not
Yeah.
Sweden, right? I
Yeah.
have visited Tel Aviv. I work with a lot of Israeli insurtechs to help them recruit here in the US, or to help them figure out how to penetrate the US market if they have a
Yeah.
successful product elsewhere. But I am not nearly as familiar with the Israeli business world and
Mhm.
society as I am with the US. So my question basically goes, just last week, Sam Altman, no, it wasn't Sam Altman, one of the other AI leaders is talking about uh, entry level white collar jobs going away quickly.
Yeah.
How do you foresee, given that you live in this space, you work in this space, what do
Okay.
you foresee careers looking like 10 years from now?
Okay. So it's like a timeline thing. Okay. So essentially, you need to look at the way that AI is going to be introduced into different fields. So essentially, we are what 2 years at most from let's say robots like Optimus, Tesla Optimus, to be introduced to manufacturing lines or to manufacturing processes, which essentially will replace like blue collar workers and factory employees and all of these kind of procedural stuff. And this is a really big question because essentially what would happen at this point is that you have a whole sector going out of business. What would happen to this kind of sector? Also in terms of education, you don't need to educate for that anymore. So I think that education needs to go on a more creative funnel. Okay. I think that creativity is the main factor that differentiates humans from computers and AI. So AI would have great inputs on what's already created. It has great inputs on your process and what you initiated. But there are two factors here. One is how do and what do you introduce as the initiation of the process? And the second element is how do you stretch the borders with or without AI? So these are two concepts that needs to be introduced into education in general. So how do you address the way to develop humanity further? Because just digesting facts and spewing dates on things like that, that has absolutely no meaning
So
anymore.
let me pause on the education piece. So at least here in the US, again, I'm almost embarrassed how US heavy my perspective is. I need to. I've traveled a lot. I need to do business abroad more, or have these conversations with people abroad more. Um, the education model, both in Costa Rica, where I grew up, and in the US, my understanding is that the US education system is a descendant of the British education system. And this education system was designed to produce factory workers who can
Hmm.
read, who can do basic arithmetic, and who can follow instructions well, right? And we're great at following instructions, uh, and who can memorize basic stuff. Okay, those are, I mean, other than Montessori type education, which is, if I had to guess, 1% of kids in the US get Montessori type education, maybe less.
And I'm not
Uh,
completely sure what's the goal here in Montessori education. There are advantages and there are there are hits and misses there. It needs to be rethought, the entire set of education, because, if you think about the way you even educate people, okay, so let's say I want to introduce some kind of concept like arithmetics or something like that. Up until now, you had a teacher teaching a classroom of, let's say, 20 to 40 children, okay? That's the ratio moving between different countries and states and such. So that's going to be changed because you'll have an AI instructor that would help every child progress on his own path, his own trajectory, his own pace. So the teacher would need to develop different skills. The teacher would need to work more on the social side of things. The AI would probably take a lot of place in the way that the teaching would happen. I think the basic needs to be taught. That's something very basic on how we manage things like reading, writing, basic arithmetic. But beyond that, I think the key focus should be on creativity, on learning about boundaries of systems and ideas, learning about how to think outside the box, learning about solution solving things. I think that's the concept we should engage as a society. In terms of like
is
work,
is hold on. So finishing on the education side, is Israel or is any country doing a fantastic job on rebuilding their education system in this way?
I know there is an experiment in the United States, in some states, that introduces AI to the process. I know that it's very successful. Okay, they made a trial. I can find the article later and send you. They made very high success in improvement in academic achievements, like in the range of 30 to 40%, okay, using AI to to teach children in their own pace. And I know that this is something that if countries wouldn't learn how to introduce this, I know that they also did some AI experiments in Israel education system, but it's not there yet. It's very early, things progress very quickly, and let's be honest, governments are not fit to deal with haste.
Okay. So before I interrupted on the education side, okay, so career-wise, how does right? I don't have kids, but
Yeah.
right, how should I advise my nieces and nephews and right and their parents on how to prepare your kids for this radically fast changing world?
So I look at it as first of all, learn to think creatively. In any way that you look at it, both in computer sciences, both in manufacturing or manual labor, also in any other aspect, you'll have what will stay would be leisure activities. Okay. So that these are for sure would stay because they are built on the human element. Okay. So you'll have theater and you'll have um, arts and crafts and you'll have, I don't know, things that are related to creation. Okay. These would stay because there is no human factor. It's not interesting anymore. Okay. A robot can make the same pot 200 times. A human would make one thing. Okay. But it would be his own creation. A robot would do something replicated. Okay. So this is one aspect that is interesting, that the human element is very important. And the second aspect is the aspect of creativity in work. Also in computers, in every aspect of work, how to employ the right tools, where to employ them, when to employ them, how to best manage systems. All of that is going to be crucial in the future job market. I mean, right now we are seeing it more and more, even if we took, let's say, our system. Okay, it doesn't prevent the need right now in teams. It will need them. It needs to empower them. Okay, it will allow the company to do much more with the same team. Okay, but it still needs these inputs along the way. I think the future would tell us that we need these less and less. I am just trying to be honest. Naturally, right now our system doesn't replace anyone. But the idea is that in the future, we'll have to face the music in that aspect. We'll need very capable creative people. We'll need very capable in terms of how to think outside the box, how to stretch the frontier of what can be done, how to employ system in a creative way, because the limit wouldn't be how do you write that code or this code, but whether or not I can employ this task on this machine or this AI, okay? And how to do that. So it's not about the technicalities, it's about the ideas, it's about thinking. And then I would say that still creativity is the key. So creativity, creativity, creativity. That's what I would say.
Perfect. So what a crazy turn of events after we spent the second half of the 20th century trying to create engineers, basically. Uh, right. Me, okay. I'm an interesting story, and we're almost out of time. I promise I'll get you out of here in time, because I do have another meeting. I'm sure you do too. But so my grandpa, Tony the second, Tony, Antonio Cañas the second, was an electrical engineer and very
Mhm,
very successful entrepreneur and stuff. And from his perspective, there's only two jobs that matter: doctors and engineers.
mhm,
And he wanted to be a doctor. His dad pushed him to be an engineer. He got lucky and he liked it, and he was successful. Then he forced my dad to be an engineer. In my dad's case, an industrial engineer, and my dad loves it still. Same
mhm,
story: entrepreneur, MBA, industrial engineer. Okay. Then I come around, and my grandpa basically says, I will pay for your college in the States. I was an international student, so I couldn't get student loans. I will pay for your college in the States. Of course, you will study engineering, right? And crazy little Tony the Fourth wanted to be a photographer. So
mhm,
he said, okay, that's fine. You can study photography in Costa Rica, or you can go to the States and study engineering. So I convinced him that computer science is engineering, and that's where I end up coming to the States to study. And then it turns out I can't do the math, and I end up with a degree in business. And I'm really a marketer at heart, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and that creativity in me kind of burst in different ways in my corporate journey in the insurance industry, in ways that sometimes helped me out, sometimes got me in trouble. But I definitely didn't fit in the corporate box, right? As you can see now by the magician with the long hair, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and the top hat most of the time. Um, so it is radically interesting to look at it. And I ended up not having kids, but if I had the fifth generation of Antonio Cañas, or my brother who's 20, Andres Cañas, it is super interesting to, as he's in college right now, to advise him and basically tell him, yeah, finish your business degree, focus on enabling your creativity. That
I
right,
mean,
it's
that's going to be the limiter because right now there are systems out there that if you have just a good creative mind, you can create amazing things. Amazing things. Okay? Swifter is more geared towards the corporate style of things. Okay? It has the process, it has the capability to generate your path, it records everything, it does the documentation. But if you're just looking to code something, not in the same level probably, but there are tools out there that can help you. Even Google developed some things to do like prototyping and things like that. That exists out there. If someone wants to do a prototype and start to do things, even develop simple games or something like that, the only thing that limits him is his creativity. That's the only thing. Like the gap to creating a software business has shrunk amazingly.
yes, yeah, and so the whole software will eat the world. Holy crap! Like it did, right? It definitely did. If software will eat the world, and Moore's law was the law of the land for at least the last 30, 40 years, what will the law of the land be in the AI era? Like if software ate the
I
world,
don't even have
right?
a concept of
I
that.
can't even think that exponentially to
It's not going to be exponential. It's going to break the function, you know? It's not the way we operate right now. And as AI progresses, we'll have to rethink the way we do economics. We'll
the
really,
entire societies will have to be rethought, and I mean every society in the world
yeah.
will have to be rethought from the ground up. And I think that's a minor exaggeration, right? Like
I
my
don't think it's
girlfriend.
one configuration at all, by the way. I
Well,
think it,
so my girlfriend is a passionate traveler, and she's trying to hit every country in the world, and she's at the stage where she's going to like sub-Saharan Africa, right? They might take a while to get hit, but the U.S. developed world, the developing world that let's call it the second world, not the third world. My native Costa Rica, like anywhere that whose economy is not almost entirely subsistence, will be radically changed by that. There's no way to
yeah,
avoid it.
I
Um,
agree with you.
so one last question. Uh,
Mhm.
guaranteed minimum income. Is that likely where all developed
I
countries end up
think
at
that
very
it
quickly?
will be a must at the end. I think it will be a must because you'll have a very, very minimal number of available jobs in the future. I think that's where we're progressing towards. I think it will be even in planned economies, I think that would be the place we'll end up at because we have no choice. I mean, it's not about uh, capitalists or not capitalists or
That paradigm is dead.
viable. Wouldn't be
Yeah, that
viable.
that paradigm is dead. My dad just visited, and my dad is a boomer, a 66-year-old boomer, uh, fairly progressive on the social side, but on the economic side, uh, pretty conservative. Raised as a Reagan Republican. Funnily enough, he's lived his entire life in Costa Rica, but still, think of him as a Reagan Republican, without the religious piece. Okay.
Mhm.
And he's still actively working. He's an entrepreneur to this day. So,
Mhm.
from his perspective, my social democrat views, I'm a pinko commie bastard, basically, from his perspective, right? And so he just visited, and we're talking, and everything political, everything economics related, goes back in his mind. It's communism, right? In his mind, it's anything, any sort of safety net
Mhm.
is perceived by him and a lot of people in the boomer generation, especially here in the States, um, as communism. And it's taken me years to explain to him, and I think he finally got it this year, that at least here in the States, there is no such thing as communism. Like, it just does not exist, right? Here in the
Yeah,
States,
it's not about that anymore.
and exactly, the whole paradigm is dead, especially
Yeah,
in an age of extreme productivity, of extreme
yeah,
abundance.
we'll get there. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, but we're getting there extremely fast.
So
Imagine that you have like manufacturing robots. It will, there is no reason to employ people to do that. Okay?
so uh
Do not own
is
that.
Israel in a better cultural place to accept the upcoming changes than the US is? Because the US, I think the biggest struggle is the US is politically paralyzed. And I don't mean that just in the Trump era. The US is politically paralyzed for the last like 12, 15, 20 years.
I'll be honest and say what I think in that aspect. I think the countries that will win will be the countries that have the process, okay, that have the manufacturing facilities, okay, because you don't need to transition the employees, you need the manufacturing facilities, okay. I think this is a smart move, for example, by Trump to try to bring more industry into the United States because he understands it maybe, but I don't know. I don't know. I
So
mean, I don't know what
um
goes in his mind, but I can tell you that moving industries, moving the manufacturing processes is very smart because if labor has no value,
mhm.
that's the place to win.
So
Okay?
bringing manufacturing back to the States, and we're definitely out of time here in 2 minutes, but bringing manufacturing back to the States is a great political thing that both parties always fight for. Uh, but what they're claiming it'll do is bring back jobs,
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna do
right?
it.
So yes, it would be good to manufacture here, but if the entirety of in the typical American way, if 99% of the economic gains of manufacturing here go to the same owners of capital who already own 2% of people in the US own 50% of the capital of this country. Um, it does
So
us
it's
no good.
not gonna change the work paradigm, okay? But having control on the manufacturing processes is crucial for the future because the ones that have the manufacturing facilities would have the ability to employ robots in these facilities. Okay? And then it means that these countries won the lottery because if labor has no cost, the facility is the linchpin.
Yeah, I I agree. I agree. What an interesting conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome to come back anytime for real. Looking forward to see you at ITC, whatever other conferences we might happen to both be at. Uh, Swifter sounds absolutely awesome for front end development. Cannot wait to have you back. I like to say have you back in 2 years, but the way things are moving, I'd love to have you back once it is fully deployed to a few carriers, and maybe come back with a client that has used it to radically change the way they develop front end. Uh,
Yeah,
Thank you so much
I
for
would
your time
love
today.
to. Thank you, Tony.